Hello and welcome to Movies, Films, and Flicks. I am Mark H. And joining me is a man who tattooed all of his notes on his body for this episode. It's Phil B.
I have to stand in front of the mirror too because they're all backwards, so I need to be able to read them. I didn't really think this through enough. Once I got out the lighter and the pen and the home tattoo kit, I really should have planned this out better. But anyway, we'll make it work.
I mean, it's impressive. You set up a mirror. You have a microphone cable that's about 8 feet long. I mean, the commitment here is outstanding. And
my penmanship's not great either. So some of these are kind of hard to read. Like I probably should have got my wife to do some of this for me, but we'll figure it out.
I mean, I love the notes. Like nice suit. Well,
nice tanned suit, right? Yeah.
Nice stolen tan suit. And I was kind of bummed. I was like, Mark H, Phil B. And on the podcast, we have a John L. and we have a Johnny N. or a Johnny W. So we don't have any John G's in this show. We have a Zanandi B, Nathan L. Oh, wait, we do have James G. James Moolah. Oh, wait, no, James Moolah. James Gill Moolah. So that's kind of a G. So we're getting there. We almost have a James G of the MFF crew that you and I both can hunt down.
Yeah.
Even though we've taken out, the original crime doer years ago.
Yeah.
But
you already took advantage of my short-term memory loss to take out Adam Hodges like immediately.
Adam
like he's the first one. Adam H is the first one to go, and then that's why there's a bunch of like redacted writing on my Polaroids. I think you manipulated me to take out Adam H. Sorry, Adam.
And you know what's interesting? On Twitter I just did a movies that feature bathroom fights tournament.
Was this on there?
Yeah, so I forgot it, but I picked 32 films that had bathroom fights, and I ran a tournament, and The Matrix won, but I think it was just The Matrix because of the name. I don't think it was the best bathroom fight, but hey, but I could have included this because this one has a bathroom fight.
Great bathroom fight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why am I here? Yeah. I'm just going to take a shower, and then I'm going to attack.
I don't feel drunk. I love that at the beginning.
Poor Dodd. Dodd is... I know he wants the money, but he should rightfully want the money. And then a maniac, naked, tattooed man is in his shower.
But I have a question about the Dodd scenes. Let's just dive right in here right away. So there's a maniac, naked, tattooed man in the shower, but Dodd still comes in and uses the bathroom anyway. Like, did he not hear the shower? Do you go into the bathroom and you don't realize you got to pee so badly? Like maybe he'd been on a long drive, he drank lots of water on the way, he really had to go. But I just feel like if you walk into the bathroom, don't you immediately notice that there's a naked tattooed guy in the shower, even if the door is closed?
And steam. Yeah, so I went back and watched it again, and I think Guy Pearce hears the door open, he immediately shuts it off. So,
right.
I mean, I like your theory. Dodd actually just had to engage in a foot chase with a tan suit maniac.
Yeah.
And then who didn't know who was chasing
Didn't know who was chasing who. Yeah.
So you have that, and then you're just coming like. You know what's interesting? When you go back to your hotel, when you're on vacation and you're in a hotel, you just sort of walk into your room. Very rarely do you kind of think, is someone in my shower? Like, does that make sense? So maybe he's...
Yeah.
Or he's had a ton of coffee, he's had a ton of water, and Dodd is laser focused, right? And Dodd probably owes people money, and he needs to get this money, so he's probably stressed out. And they let him live. Which is nice.
I'm gonna cut Dodd a bit of slack. It was on the rewatch. I thought that he should have noticed Leonard in the shower, but you make a fair point. I guess who among us expects a crazed, tattooed, naked guy to jump out of the shower at us when we're just trying to get back into our motel before we make our next move? Fair enough.
That's nightmare fuel.
It really is.
And I gotta tell you, watching this movie again, and we'll kind of talk about, we've actually talked about on this show about Memento in our first time watching it. We'll do it again. Mm-hmm. But revisiting this, I haven't revisited this movie in a long time. And I'm not trying to make a pun here about Memento and memory, but I remembered a lot of it. I really did. I haven't seen this thing in 10 plus years. Easy. And watching it again, it's all still there. For me, like, I watch so many movies. I remember I watched a movie the other day, and 3 hours later, I saw a trailer for it, and I went, oh yeah, I watched that. Like not that I have the memory problem, but I think I absorb so much content that you just sort of, like, I'm a bucket that's full of water. Any new water that comes in, something comes out. So
Right.
like, but for some reason, not to make a pun here, but this movie is very fresh in my memory. And then, I remember buying the DVD, listening to the commentary. I mean, this movie is essentially a film student's best friend. This, Donnie Darko, Fight Club, 90s, 2000, and 2001 movies. But I'm so glad you suggested this, because is it hipster to say that this could be your favorite Nolan film? Is it like is that, how many people, like, and I'm not trying to be contrarian, and you know what, maybe this is people's most, this is the one they enjoy the most of Nolan's filmography. But do you think that's in reaction to where he's gone as a big budget filmmaker? Or do you think this is his most enjoyable film?
I think the analogy that I would draw is, it's like you take your favorite band, and when they release, maybe not their first album, but an early album that you enjoy and you connect with, and it's almost like part of what you enjoy about them is the fact that nobody else really knows about them yet. Nobody else knows about how good they are. And what's interesting with Nolan is, he'd done Following before this, which I haven't actually even seen. I don't know if you've seen it.
People follow people. It's good.
Okay.
Yeah, a lot of following. And this was a good follow up. Oh.
I've been meaning for years to check it out, but he'd only done that prior to Memento, and Memento essentially launches him into the stratosphere. And he ends up on this trajectory where every subsequent movie that he does starts to become bigger and bigger. And so it's like, the band that sort of becomes more popular, more mainstream, kind of, maybe experiments in different ways. So I don't think it's hipster to say that Memento, if someone says that it's their favorite Nolan movie, I don't think that that's necessarily the hipster answer. It's one of those things where, like, because for me, Memento was my introduction to Nolan. Okay. I think I originally saw it in 2005. And so I guess maybe if you watch like The Dark Knight first, and that's your introduction to Nolan, and then you go back and watch Memento and say, oh yeah, Memento is my favorite Nolan movie, that maybe that's a little bit more of the hipster answer.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like if like you, I saw this movie many, many years ago and just connected with it so much because of the film, like the way that it's shot and the techniques and obviously the just incredible creativity that goes into the way that they tell the story. And I think it's just one of a kind, right? Like, so for all that Nolan goes on to maybe do, bigger and arguably some of his films are better than this, it's just so unique in the way that the story is told. So I don't begrudge anybody that says it's their favorite Nolan movie.
You know what I think I love most about it is there's nothing precious about this movie. And it does use a gimmick, but what's interesting? Someone said, hey, Nolan, this is a non-linear film. And Nolan responded, it wasn't that casual. Hey, Nolan. But he kind of, he said, you know what? I think this is a linear film because you have one narrative moving forward, the other one moving backwards, but it's not like a Pulp Fiction that moves you all around and then it ties it together. Listen, if you wanted to be a super broad about it, you could just say, well, it's non-linear because it goes backwards and forwards. But the way it goes backwards and forwards, each scene interconnects with the other. So even if it isn't a straightforward narrative, the narrative is still quite straightforward, and you kind of get onto that because they connect. They eventually connect, I'm looking for a really good example. So he said it's kind of like a U, these movies. So like they both move towards the middle in that YouTube explanation that he does. But I love how this movie, sometimes time jump movies or non-linear edited films, or, I mean, if you think about it, this movie has two storylines, one in black and white. You have I don't think I would call him an unreliable narrator, because he's not purposefully trying to deceive the audience. So I wouldn't say this is an unreliable narrator. So but you have the amnesia thing, you have the revenge game, you have, who's like, I feel like on so many levels this could have felt stock, but it still feels like a special movie. I mean, this was nominated for an Academy Award for Best Original Screenplay. I mean, this is well written, well edited, well acted. I think Guy Pearce is the only actor I see in this movie who could do this. And I just the earnestness with him, and I think Joey Pants is amazing. I think Carrie-Anne Moss is really great. Even Mark Boone Jr. is good. But I guess this is a long way of me saying that sometimes in film, sometimes with indies, sometimes with auteur directors who are just getting started, you kind of witness really written lines, or you feel every line's written, of course, but you feel that emphasis on it. You feel the preciousness of a shot, or the way the timeline is, or they're actively trying to deceive you. This movie ties it together. All you have to do is pay attention. The clues are there. I mean, there's no top hats like in The Prestige, but
yeah.
I don't know how you feel about it. Do you? I think it's so good because it uses all these quote unquote gimmicks, but in a very straightforward, intelligent, and simple way.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, I can't, and maybe you can shed some light on this for me, but I can't think of another film that is like this. Like, to me, it's on an island on its own. I mean, there's so many stories that sort of show you where we're going to end up, and Nolan even does this in other films. They sort of show you the end and then jump back to the beginning to sort of say, okay, now we're going to explain to you how we got to where we were. And you watch for 2 hours and end up where you started, and you go, oh, right, okay, I forgot. We're going to see where all these top hats came from. I can't think of another film that tells a story this way. And this is I mean, like you're saying, there's a bunch of sort of different ingredients here. There's amnesia. There's, maybe I agree with your point about him not necessarily being an unreliable narrator. He's only unreliable because he sort of chooses to be, I guess, and does earnestly believe. He says, I live my life based on facts, and I only accept the facts. While he manipulates the facts and
hid those 12 pages. He redacted certain things. He
burns the Polaroids, right?
He's a serial killer.
Yeah, he's a total psycho for sure. But I can't think of another movie that is like this, that sort of takes I guess what I'm trying to say is takes a relatively simple story with some creative elements and some interesting pieces. But what makes this movie so unique is just the way that the story is told. Mm-hmm. And I can't I don't even necessarily like calling it a gimmick, because I do. I think that it's just it's a creative way to tell a story that I'm not sure anybody else could replicate it, because it would just be ripping this off.
Exactly.
And I'd be interested to know, so for you, you're saying you remembered a lot of the film, even not having seen it for 10 years. So what are some of the things that stick out to you when, maybe even prior to rewatching it? Like, what would be the things that you remember about this film, or kind of what makes this maybe stand out as something that's particularly memorable for you?
I won't be too long here, but I remember I started working at a theater in 99, and it was around this time where in 99 I watched Election. I watched, moving forward in the years, I watched Fight Club, I watched Donnie Darko, I watched The Royal Tenenbaums, I watched Memento. And listen, I know a lot of people are like, oh, these are the stereotypical movies, but they weren't that in 99. And this is when I was like 17 and 19 years old. I loved movies, but I love movies in so much as let's go to the theaters and watch whatever's there, or let's go to Blockbuster and rent things. I didn't have a deep knowledge of cinema. I didn't know, I had never seen the Apu trilogy. Ozu, I didn't even know that. Maybe I'd watched a Kurosawa film. I wasn't skilled, I wasn't invested with Kubrick yet, because I just got the movies I could get my hands on. And so this was the time in my life when I really felt that I loved movies, because I remember people hating Election, my friends, and I loved it. I remember sort of getting movies. And I remember watching this film, and the way that Carrie-Anne Moss is initially treated, you're kind of like, oh, this is a femme fatale, she's, but I mean, a serial killer showed up to her business wearing her boyfriend's suit and driving his car. So the spitting scene where she manipulates him. I mean, this is normally in these movies, right? Because there was an interview with Elvis Mitchell when he was talking to Christopher Nolan, and they were talking about femme fatales. But a femme fatale normally deals with a man who's sort of weak, a weak man who's like, she just uses her feminine wiles to
lure him.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then his life is wrecked, and he ends up in his office shot, smoking a cigarette like dames. But this is a woman who, she's just surviving like he is. I mean, he killed her boyfriend who had money, and she knew people would come after him, so she had to get proactive to go after Dodd. And then I think she ends up she gives him the information at the end that leads to Joey Pants, Teddy. But I remember watching that, and I remember thinking, like, there's always like the femme fatale. There's always these stereotypical characters, and she did not fall in that at all. And I remember really liking that. And I remember our protagonist in this movie is a serial killer. And I remember just thinking, like, this is a really interesting choice for a lead, and the way Guy Pearce played him. But it was, I guess it's a long way of saying, when I was 18, when I watched this movie, I felt like I understood it, and I felt like I appreciated the ways that it subvert the femme fatale, the ways that it subverted. I wasn't too familiar with amnesia films at the time, but I just felt, and also I was very satisfied with this movie when if you watch this movie, you understand it at the end. Like, you get it. There's a few loose ends. There's a scene where she's touching his chest and he has the tattoo, like, I did it. That kind of stuff. But you get it. Like, this guy, Teddy pissed him off, so he's like, I'm going to get you. Like, that's it. I'm going to manipulate my memories, and I'm going to hunt you next. And then once you get it, you're like, oh, cool. Like, so this was a special time with me with movies, because I was learning that I really appreciated the offbeat, the indie, the Wes Andersons, that kind of stuff, the Sofia Coppola. Like, I really embraced that type of cinema. And so I think that's why I remember it so much, because there's this group of movies in that age when it felt like like, you know, when sometimes you love movies just for the entertainment. I feel like I got over I still love them, but I got over, like, the plateau, and I just became an ultimate movie lover, like an ultimate movie nerd with these movies. So that's why I remember it so much. You know, I also remember spitting in the beer. You always remember, Teddy getting shot, the suit, the scratches, the tattoos, the quite haunting Polaroid of Guy Pearce pointing towards his chest, smiling. I guess I should say Leonard, but that's the kind of stuff that has burnt into my memory, no pun included. But yeah, that's me. But, like, this is one of your favorite movies too. So how did you?
Yeah, so the first time that I ever saw it was actually at school, which is interesting. So similar stage of life, like a young person, and I mentioned this on our pod about Fight Club, that, for me, that's sort of like late teenage, early 20s years. I studied philosophy in school, and this was a time where I was really, really into that and really connected with movies and other content that sort of dealt with, whatever you call it, popcorn philosophy, sort of philosophy 101, undergrad philosophy, whatever. We had a cool philosophy teacher in 12th grade that, we were talking about things like, what is the nature of knowledge, or what's the difference between a fact and a belief, and how do you truly know what you know, these sorts of things. And he showed us this film. Now, I will say he did skip the scene where Carrie-Anne Moss turns on Leonard, and kind of gave us like, all right, I probably can't show this in school, so we're going to fast forward. I'm going to explain to you what happened, and then we'll check back in. But I can remember immediately going out and finding this on DVD afterwards, and just diving into, reading about it and the different theories and different explanations around the timeline. And I agree, like, some of the things that stood out for you are the things that stood out for me as well. The way that the story is told for the first 20 minutes of watching the film is completely disorienting.
Yeah.
You're just like, what in the world is happening? And it's supposed to be like that, though, because that's what it's like to be Leonard. And you're supposed to feel this again on the YouTube video that we watched, where Nolan explains sort of the timeline. The idea of the color scenes is that they're supposed to be these very subjective scenes, right?
He says subjective a lot.
Yeah, and so he had this idea, right, between like filming it from Leonard's subjective experience during the color scenes, and then the black and white was sort of a more documentary style sort of objective scenes. And there's a lot of differences in the shots even that sort of speak to this, where the black and white, you've kind of got the overhead, wider shots. You can see more of the room. You can see a little bit more of what's going on. And Leonard's doing a lot of explaining about, his condition and how he functions and so on and so forth. The color scenes, you just get thrown into the action and you're in a chase and you've got to figure out what's going on. Now, I totally agree though. By the end, even midway through the film, you start to get kind of used to the rhythm. You remember what happened in the previous color scene. You then jump back before that, and then there are those overlapping periods where again you sort of see where the story is going. And so once you kind of get used to that rhythm, I just can remember being really, really excited about that, going, oh my gosh, like I have no idea what's going on. And then midway through the film kind of going, okay, I can kind of see what's happening. I get this now. And then kind of wondering like, okay, so where is this going to go? Like what happened in the lead up to Joey Pants to Teddy ultimately getting killed? Like, how is that not the climax of the film? Like what's going to happen? That's where that sort of becomes like the second part of the story, the footnote to the story. Anyway, that to me is one of the big things that stood out and had me really, really excited about this film, seeing it originally.
No, absolutely. And it's rare nowadays because you and I are both busy. We're both very busy, but it's one of those movies where if you can sit down and just watch it all and focus on it, it really does. It's very fulfilling. It's one of the more fulfilling watches I think you'll ever have. Now, there are some gigantic blockbusters and I love them, but you can just sort of hang out and like let it hit you in the face and like you just enjoy it, right? You just CGI fight, funny line here, a character you like here, a good cameo, and you're like, that was great, that was fun, oh, awesome. But then you kind of leave and you go eat dinner and you forget about it. This movie, you sort of have to sit in it and you have to like get into its rhythms. And for me, I always love those experiences too, because I mean, I was a little watching this movie. I was a little self-conscious because I took my mom and stepdad and this was not on they just weren't into it. And that's fine. I watched a lot of movies with my mom that she liked, but this one was just not on their level. So I was not level. This was not on their, didn't have the same, wavelength, I guess, if that makes sense. So then, I kind of thought about that while watching it, but then I think it's so rewarding. I remember watching The New World in a theater, and I remember watching Grizzly Man, or just movies that to me were very affecting, and you got to sit there and sort of live in them. And this is one of those movies. But most importantly, it is not cute. Like, it is not. That's what makes this movie Oscar nominated. That's what makes this movie. It's 8.4 on IMDb, and it has over 1 million ratings on IMDb. I think it's number 54 on the IMDb top 250. And once again, I'm repeating myself, but what makes it so good is it's not precious. It's not cute. It's not a puzzle box. This was based on a short story by Nolan, who published it in Esquire, and then by Christopher Nolan, who, thank goodness he wrote it, because this is a man who is obsessed with time. I mean, look at Insomnia. Like, that's all about time and adjusting to a different time zone. And then you got, everything, every Tenet.
Every movie. Yeah.
Interstellar. Geez Louise. So you have him writing it. I don't know. I just think, and also they shot this in 25.5 days, which is gnarly. And that's a quick shoot for that. And I remember Guy Pearce, he only had 2 days originally to do all the black and white scenes. Did you watch that? He did a GQ thing.
I saw it, yeah.
Yeah. And it's funny, the executive producer on this movie, Emma Thomas did this. And then there's Emma's tattoos. That's
nice little
wife,
reference.
Yeah. But the producer, Aaron Ryder, he gave them an extra day. Like, I ended up working with him on a movie, not with him, but I was on a movie that he worked. And it was called Premature. It's like a teenage sex comedy that A24 released, but he was on it. And I remember one day I was working and he was standing next to me. And this is a guy who wrote, who produced Memento, Donnie Darko. He had done The Prestige, and let's see. And he also did Mud, which I absolutely love. I love that movie, Mud. but I was standing next to him, and he was standing next to me, and I just wanted to be like, hey man, let's talk movies.
Let's talk Memento, yeah.
But I didn't do it, but I just went, hey, I was like, yeah, I'm really happy that Mud is getting great reviews. I was like, because I love the director, Jeff Nichols. I was like, I think he's an absolute excellent director, and I'm stoked that it's doing great. And he kind of looked at me weird, and he's like, thanks, man. Like, that's cool. He's like, I'm really happy it's doing well. And then that was about it. But I kind of want to be like, tell me about Memento, you know?
Yeah.
But I was like, well, I won this battle, so I should probably just step away and have that going. But like, that's how much I love Memento. Like, I knew the producers on this movie. Like, I was like,
I love that that's your starstruck on a film set. You're like the guy that produced Memento and Mud. Like, I gotta play this cool and like not just like, you know, jump all over them. That's amazing.
Yeah, well, you know, on sets, right, like with actors, I never would have done that, because you don't want to be fanboy Mark. You want to be coworker Mark. So, you know, I just sort of, all right, yeah, we're going. We need you on set, hair and makeup.
What,
you know.
what, in what circumstance though is the most that you've violated that rule? Like, when were you at your most fanboy on a movie set?
Oh, on a movie set. Oh man. Geez. I guess I worked on The Following, and that's a Kevin Bacon show, and I got
not to be confused with Following.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah. So I worked on that, and they needed a cop, and so they brought me in. If you watch the pilot episode of The Following, I'm at the end dragging out one of the actors. His name is So I forget his name.
Oh, I'm gonna go check it out.
So if you watch the pilot episode, you will see me at the end dragging out the serial killer played by James Purefoy. And so I've worked on 2 Bacon projects, but yeah, I'm on screen with Kevin Bacon, so I'm like 0 degrees, so you can always use that.
I was gonna say you're 0 degrees,
Yeah.
and now starstruck. Oh, that's amazing.
And Purefoy was there, and so I had to drag him out. So I had to unhandcuff him in real handcuffs, drag him out all day. So it's just, I was stressed out. Everyone was like, Mark, what's going on? Like Kevin Williamson was there, the guy who did Scream, wrote Scream, like he was the one heading us up. And they're like, Mark, like, why are you having such a problem here? I'm like, these are real handcuffs. And then everyone on set just went, oh, okay, you're cool. Like, you're doing great then. So everyone thought I was like messing up fake handcuffs. But I was like, these are real. I have to unhandcuff him every time and then wrap it around him while he's fighting me. And so once everyone learned that the prop department gave me real handcuffs, everyone was real nice. But at first, they're like, what's wrong with this kid? But Purefoy was there, and it was the end of the scene. I think he and I were walking to get a transpo van to parking. And I was like, hey, man, like, what happened with John Carter? Like, I remember saying that. I was just kind of like, that movie was fun. It was like, it was a good time. I was like, but it seemed like critics had their like teeth out for it. And he's like, yeah, tell me about it, man. He's like that. He's like, yeah. He's like, I mean, he's like, the budget was huge. The director Lasseter like had a lot of power that people didn't like. He's like, but also Lasseter told me that if we get a sequel, I was gonna have a main role. So I'm pretty pissed that critics had it out for it. So I guess that's my number one thing, because, and it wasn't even like, hey man, I'm a huge fan of Knight's Tale, brah. This was just more about, hey, what do you think happened there? Like what? Because I was interested, and I'm always interested when people hate a movie before it comes out. Like I want to know how public momentum was swayed. I want to know, and I feel that with Jurassic Park Dominion too. People feel that way as well. But I had to ask him about it. And so he gave me a cool answer. We kind of talked about it for a little bit. And I was like, all right, yeah, thank you very much. And I just went my own way. But that was kind of the one time where I just said, you know, I had to talk to a guy about a movie. But I did stop Dolph Lundgren in an airport once. That was like my creepiest fan moment. But then I won him over. So it was cool.
He didn't say, I must break you at any point?
So I'll be real quick. But
leave me alone or I will break you.
Megan Hoffmeyer, who you know, she's great. I was on the phone with her. I was working a job in Austin, Texas. And I was like, man, that's Dolph Lundgren walking by me. She goes, Mark, hang up the phone and go talk to him. So I was like, ugh. So I walked up to him. He was coffee, spilled his coffee. And he's like, yeah, you know, no pictures. I'm like, no problem. I just want to say that I said I really enjoy the new Universal Soldier movies. You directed a film called Command Performance, which I really like. I was like, and I also mentioned another sort of direct-to-DVD movie that he did. And he goes, what's your name? I went, Mark. He goes, nice to meet you, Mark. I'm Dolph. And he shook my hand. At first, because I think he was like, this guy's going to talk me out Rocky. He's going to want to say, you know what I mean? And
you went with the deep cuts, yeah.
And so I went with the Universal Soldiers, you know, direct-to-DVD sequels. And then I went with the movie he directed that I enjoyed. And then he just stopped and like, what's your name? And shook my hand. And so I won Dolph over. That's probably my weirdest like fan moment, I would say. And it's a long way of getting away from Memento. But yeah.
No, I love it. Those are incredible stories.
Yeah, but that was, I'm a movie nerd. And can we get back to this? Like one quick thing. There's so much to talk about in this movie. And I wasn't trying to be insulting to people and calling them hipsters if they like Memento, because I think you could make a case for this being your favorite Nolan film, because Tenet's great, but it's very, man, I got it too, though. I love Tenet. I don't want to hate on that. I love Dunkirk, but the simplicity of this one, and it's not simple because nobody has recreated this. Like, this is so straightforward, and it's a simple narrative, quote unquote. It's a fun noir that defies a bunch of noir conventions. So yeah, I think you could put it up there. I don't think it's the most rewatchable of all of his films, but I guess I just hear so many people going, yeah, Memento's the best. And I'm like, it's good. I don't know. It's hard. I don't even know what my point is here, but
I agree. I think it's the uniqueness. Again, it's the fact that it stands out on its own. I mean, you look at, okay, so, you know, he redoes the Batman movies and puts his own spin on them, and in my opinion does an incredible job. But the reality is, there are Batman movies in a universe that's filled with lots of other, you know, Batman movies and superhero movies and that sort of thing. And certainly those movies garnered lots of imitators that followed, right? And so it all sort of blends together a little bit. I think with Memento, the fact that it's a $9 million movie that looks incredible, that's told in this amazingly unique way, and the fact that nothing else really like it has come out since, to me is what is part of what makes it awesome. And like, it's one of my favorite movies for sure. And even just the cast too, like the fact that, like, okay, so Guy Pearce, like, I think Guy Pearce's performance in this is incredible. And I agree with you. I was racking my brain for days, knowing that we were going to be talking about this movie, trying to think about if there's anyone else that I thought could do this role. I guess originally there was talk of casting Brad Pitt, and he's maybe the only guy that I think I could see doing this. But I don't know. I'm not sure that he would necessarily be better than Pearce. Like, I think he does an amazing job.
When you go on IMDb and you look at Memento and you look at the trailer, it's like con man, thief, liar, innocent, guilty. Like, they say about 18 different adjectives or for Leonard. And watching this movie, though, he's very threatening. He's also very earnest. He's also at times seems very helpless, but then other times he seems very dangerous. And you know, sometimes he seems like a naked cheetah ready to explode out of a bathroom and kill you. Like, there's so many different levels to his character that I don't know if many people have, if that makes sense. It's even the strategic cuts on his face, he look great with those. But yeah, just seeing his earnestness, but then there's also something lurking underneath him, the conditioning. I know this is a really weird thing to say, but I think Guy Pearce is perfect in this movie, and because he had to be in his own head on this. He had to be like each different moment you sort of had to calibrate where your character was at, which I really liked about him. But also too is his slight frame. Guy Pearce is a good looking dude, but he also doesn't look like supermodel-y, I guess. So I don't know.
You think about earlier in the film, he's an insurance claims investigator. So you need a guy that can play both psycho serial killer, like you said, jumping out of the shower covered in tattoos, ready to kill you. But you also need those scenes where he's the insurance investigator, and he's, in the suit and tie, and he's, talking about how he's logical, and he's an investigator, and he's really good at what he does for a living. And, that's how he's able to survive now. Like, I was thinking, could a guy like Tom Hardy, for example, I think could for sure pull off the psycho in the motel room who's not good on the phone and is, having a conversation with, he's not even 100% sure who he's talking to while he's tattooing himself at the same time. But I'm not sure I could see Tom Hardy, like the flip side of, the scenes where he's at home with his wife, and it's like, this nice like relationship that he's remembering. I don't know that I necessarily would see like a guy like Tom Hardy, in that. So I think that it's like, I completely agree that Pearce is like perfectly cast here, where he can sort of do both of those things. I buy him as like the, kind of hotshot insurance investigator who gets the promotion when he turns down Sammy's wife's poor Sammy's wife's insurance claim. But that's a completely unhinged lunatic after the accident as well. Like, he pulls off both so perfectly.
And he adds a menace too when you watch it later on, to just, when you know who he is, when you know that he's continuing this trend of killing people, and then you sort of see him later on just kind of gaunt, kind of almost feral looking to a point, and then calculated as well. You get the layers to the performance, I think. Yeah. I think you start seeing maybe it's a placebo effect, but you start getting the menace. You start feeling the menace to his character.
I want to touch on that, because the film that he does after Memento is The Count of Monte Cristo. Have you seen The Count of Monte Cristo?
So good. Love that movie.
It is easily in my top 10 favorite movies of all time. And he plays Fernand, the villain, in The Count of Monte Cristo. And he is absolutely cold-blooded in that movie. Mm-hmm. There's this amazing scene where he's had an affair with someone's wife. And so it's, old timesy sword fighting. I challenge you to a duel. And so he has a duel against the disgraced husband. And, they're sword fighting out on the front lawn, basically. And he wins the duel and kills the guy, and basically like stabs the guy through the heart and walks away in such a cold-blooded manner. And so I'm really glad that you highlighted just, like kind of how villainous and how menacing he is in his performance as Leonard. And he takes that to a whole new degree in The Count of Monte Cristo. So for anyone that's listening that hasn't seen it, I could not recommend, again, another sort of low budget, like punches way above its weight film as well. Just incredible. Count of Monte Cristo.
You're so right. He's such a threatening good villain in that, when he just kills that guy. Oh man, he's so good. And then also Caviezel's really good in earnest in that movie. Also Luis Guzman and a young Henry Cavill as well.
Yeah. Oh really?
Yeah.
Oh, yes, that's right. As the son, I didn't make that connection. That's so funny.
I was just looking through his filmography, and he's been in some of my. This is sick. So right, he's in The Adventures of Priscilla, Queen of the Desert. I mean, wonderful film. Then he goes to L.A. Confidential. There's movies I'm skipping, but Ravenous, that's one of my all-time favorite cult classics. Memento, Count of Monte Cristo. Then he goes and does The Proposition, which is one of the grossest, dirtiest westerns you'll ever see, and he's amazing in that. But then he moves on to The Hurt Locker in a quick role. Inner Skin, he's good. Then in The Road, he's this is a wanderer. And Animal Kingdom, he's an excellent detective. And Animal Kingdom is unbelievable, by the way. And then he pops up in Lockout as like a really beefy, tough guy who's kind of, he's like, yeah, here's a gun and an apple. He's like, don't talk to people, shoot them. Like, he's this excellent villain. The Rover, I thought he was really good in too. I mean, this is a guy who, I'm going through his
the King's. He's really good in the King's Speech as well.
Too. I love Bloodshot.
Oh, Bloodshot! I'll have to check that out. I've never seen Bloodshot, but have you seen?
He's really good.
Really good in the King's Speech as well, like as the disgraced brother.
Oh man, yeah, look at this filmography. I mean, he works though, and then he was in Mayor of Easttown for some reason. Like, why is he in this movie? But no, I guess man, this is good. I would put his top 5. Jeez Louise, what a filmography. Sorry, I know I'm getting lost here, and I should know what movies he's been in, but it's kind of fun looking through, because Guy Pearce is sort of a sleeper. Like, whenever we see Guy Pearce, my wife and I were like, Guy Pearce, yes! Watching him in Bloodshot wearing a cardigan with like a robot hand fighting Vin Diesel is a highlight of, my life. But no, he's one of these guys that just keeps finding really interesting work. And
I'm glad that you're shouting some of these out, because I'll be honest, I looked through his IMDb and like the guy works a ton. Like, I think he's got 89 or 90 acting credits, somewhere along those lines. And I hadn't seen a lot of his stuff. And so, I think he's a great actor. Like, when I agree with you, every single time he pops up, I'm like, Guy Pearce, phenomenal actor. Sometimes I don't understand why, he hasn't maybe been in some bigger roles or isn't a bigger star, but I appreciate you, shouting out some of his better performances. I wrote a bunch of those down.
He's really good in just being in, like, Proposition and Rover and Animal Kingdom's so good. And then The Road, like, he does a lot of wandering in movies. And Ravenous, geez Louise. But no, it's I think just the way he juggles his performance, the way Nolan gets this performance out of him. And listen, being a second-time filmmaker, to come in, make this $9 million movie in 25 days, and to make it as tight as he did, and because this is a puzzle piece of a film, but I think this is where you realize the brilliance of Nolan and the way that he can structure a film and do that. But yeah, I mean, you know what's crazy? Like, this was kind of fun. I remember watching this movie in 2000, and it was one of the first times I really wanted to get on the internet. I didn't have internet at the time. But I wanted to go research it. So I was like, wait, what does that tattoo mean at the end? What does this mean at the end? Does he really do this the whole time? This was kind of my pre-internet days of just wanting to, like, learn more about the picture. I don't know if you had that as well. You had a whole class to talk to. I didn't really have, like, anybody to really talk to.
But I had a whole class to talk to, but I don't think anybody was into the film as much as I was. And so I definitely, that would have been probably more like 2005 maybe when I saw this. And so at that point, I definitely was, like, in deep on the internet forums, like, reading the different theories. Is Leonard Sammy Jankis? Like, is that really what happened? Or is that a separate story? That sort of thing.
Was Sammy a faker?
Was Sammy a faker? Trying to understand the chronology. I actually, the edition of the DVD that I bought is really cool too. I think I sent you a photo of this the other day. Awesome. It's like a limited edition that came. The case is actually like a medical file for Leonard, and it has all kinds of cool features and Easter eggs. When you actually turn on the DVD and go through the menu, it makes you watch this memory test that gets conducted. So they say, we're about to show you, I think it's 15 words, memorize as many of them as you can. And then all these words start flashing across the screen. And then it brings up a menu with all of the words listed on one page. Now, if you want, one of the words is watch. And so if you want to actually then watch the film, you just click on the word watch and it starts the film. But there's all kinds of different patterns and things that you can enter in. If you want to watch the movie in its normal chronology, so all of the black and white scenes at the beginning from start to finish, and then all of the color scenes in, like, the, I guess, chronological order, you can watch the film that way. So I've definitely done that as well. Watched it forwards. Super, super cool. So I definitely have been in deep on this movie for a long time.
You know what's interesting? You get the villainy so much more of Leonard when you watch it, I guess, chronologically correct. It adds, and it adds more, you feel more for Natalie. I never felt bad for Natalie. I always knew what she was going. Listen, a psychopath is wearing her boyfriend's clothes and he has her money, so no wonder she wants to use this guy. But you feel more for her. You kind of feel, you Teddy too, like, you're just like, this guy's a dirtbag. So Teddy is actively manipulating Leonard with the letters and just getting him to kill people to keep on this journey. So Teddy has some screws loose. Clearly, he's sort of using Leonard as a battering ram.
And he's trying to take out a drug dealer, right, to get the money. Like, that's it's one of the cool sort of references throughout the film. On the rewatch, you see how many times Teddy tries to get Lenny away from the car. Like, he's like, oh, let's take my car, or why don't you steal, he tells him that he should steal the drug dealer's, car, because he's trying to get the money, right, in the back of the car the whole time. And going back to Natalie as well, what I just wanted to mention, going back to the femme fatale angle, I agree. I don't necessarily feel a lot of sympathy for her. One of the things that I love about her character, though, is that she instantly realizes how she can manipulate Leonard. Yeah. It's not like he walks into the bar, like you're saying, wearing her boyfriend's suit, driving his car, and within 5 minutes, she's serving him a drink that everybody spit in. So she figures that out immediately, how she can use it to her advantage. And I don't know, it's kind of a cool, like when she says at the end, Leonard, you and I are both survivors. Like that's kind of a cool aspect to her character, I think. The fact that, yeah, she is a survivor. She's clearly very street smart and like figures out right away how she can use this guy to her advantage.
Absolutely. And at the end, she does sort of help him at the diner in the beginning by giving him the James G. Teddy information.
Yep.
She does almost feel for the guy, but also maybe kind of hates him as well. I mean, but she also understands that he's sort of a battering ram. She just sort of uses him. But then Leonard's also willingly hiding details. So it's a really interesting, no one's innocent. No one's all the way, well, yeah, he purposely lies to kill Teddy. But then he doesn't remember that, does he? When he thinks, I'm just going to hunt him and kill him because I'm mad at him. You should always stay with Leonard until he flips. If you drop a bombshell on him, stay with him until he switches and then leave. Because there are times when Teddy leaves and he has time to write something down. If I mess with Leonard, I would just wait for him to. Does that make sense? I would wait.
Totally. It's one of the cool bits of trivia that I read that I noticed it watching it, but when Teddy is telling Leonard that he can't trust Natalie, and he says, take my pen, write this down, don't trust her. Did you notice that Lenny writes don't trust Natalie on her Polaroid, but in totally different handwriting than his normal handwriting? So he sort of signals to himself that, like, all right, this is something that I either gotta cross out or that I gotta not pay attention to, because it's like he mentions, you have to trust your own handwriting is one of the things he says about his system. And so when he's writing a piece of information that he doesn't actually want to follow, he does it in like a totally different style of handwriting.
Wow. I never caught that. Yeah, and that's just another reason why the movie's good. He does have a system. He's conditioned himself. With the story about Sammy, you tell everybody this because he wants to deal with it and he wants to condition himself. That's a really interesting thing to do there. So he does have a system, which is interesting. So he doesn't know. So technically he doesn't know. He's suspect at that moment. That's really, so he doesn't think back to 2 days prior, but he just kind of thinks instinctively, or maybe from conditioning, that I am going to write it like this.
Yeah. I think the conditioning part of it is an important aspect of the film that kind of fills in a lot of the, I don't even want to call it a plot hole, but I think the biggest question maybe that comes out of this film is like, how does Leonard remember that he has a condition? Like if the last thing that he remembers is the incident, how is it that he's able to to remember that he has a condition? How is it that he's able to remember that he has this system? And that's exactly it, though. It's the conditioning. It's the fact that he keeps repeating the same story over and over again. And it's an important detail that he's clearly honed in on when he's trying to create this Sammy Jenkins character. That's an important point of delineation between him and Sammy, where he says, like, Sammy couldn't learn through conditioning, but I can. And so that's one of the reasons why he's convinced himself that Sammy is this entirely different person. Because Sammy, whatever, was either faking or his condition was psychological. Whereas Leonard, through conditioning, through repetition, through routine, he can still learn new things. He can't make new memories, but he can learn new things and figure things out by repeating it to himself over and over again.
Wow. And he does. And he preaches that to people. And that's why he puts the message right on his hand where he can see it. Remember Sammy Jenkins. Like, that's where you see it and makes you think, and it conditions you. And I will say, though, Stephen Tobolowsky as Sammy was really good, and also Harriet Sansom Harris as Mrs. Jenkins. They were really good. Also, there's a movie Licorice Pizza where Harriet Sansom Harris steals her scene that she's in. She's just absolutely hilarious. But like, what a cast, though. This is a crazy, just to get Mark Boone Jr. as a guy in just in a hotel clerk. Like
Clerk, yeah.
I mean, and then also too, what I love about Joey Joey Pantoliano is that
Yeah,
he
let's
can
talk
be
about him.
so shifty, but he's also so likable. So he's this absolute dirtbag who's using a man with a condition, but his line reading and his, you know, he what does he call her? When he takes a photo, he calls her Leibowitz. He's like, yeah, good job, Leibowitz.
Yeah, that's right.
And he's just always, and then when he gets hit, he's like, geez. Yeah, he's just he's such like a squirrely presence, but he's just so likable. And just when he explains everything to him, and imagine his frustration though. I mean, you kill a guy, you take his money, and then a man with the condition goes around driving around the person you just killed car with your name attached to him. So he's under an incredible amount of stress as well. I mean, he probably could have just offed Leonard.
Yeah, do you think that's interesting? So do you think because I'm not sure that I caught that. So does Teddy know after Leonard kills Jimmy, the drug dealer, and they have that whole interaction, does Teddy then know that Leonard is now turned on him and Leonard is going to start hunting him?
Yeah,
does he have that figured out?
Why would he go into the building with him at the end? And why would he? Maybe he doesn't understand his conditioning as much. Maybe he doesn't understand that Leonard is more dangerous than what he seems. Because if you think about it, a lot of people with disabilities, remember he even tells him that Sammy was bluffing to seem like less of a freak.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like a story that he's telling Joey, like, you bluff because you don't know what's going on. So I think there is a underestimation of Leonard. But it is quite naive of Teddy to hang around when Leonard is hanging out with Natalie. That's a bit of a loose thread. Maybe I'm missing something. Maybe I might get yelled at for this, but
maybe I don't. Yeah, he does tell him like, hey, let's go down to the basement, and then I'll explain. Like he does try to explain to him a few times what the truth is, and that's the interesting thing about Joey Pants sort of being cast in this role. Because I agree. I think I don't know if I would say that he's likable. He's obviously he's super friendly, super funny, but and maybe it's only because the first time I ever saw Joey Pants was in The Matrix, where he's super shady and betrays everybody, and you kind of know that it's coming like the whole time. And so every time Joey Pants is on the screen, he just seems so untrustworthy. And maybe it's the fact that it's don't believe his lies. Right there, you're sort of anchored to that for the rest of the movie.
True.
But he ends up being the most truthful character in the whole film. Like he ends up being the only one that really does, more so even than Leonard, who's lying to himself. Teddy's the only person that ends up telling the truth.
Yeah, he knows what Leonard's doing. He knows that Leonard is making up these stories, and he just keeps giving him something to do. But then Teddy thinks that because he knows that Leonard's lying. So he's like, screw it, I'll just make some money from it. So Leonard's happy, I'm happy, we have a good relationship here. It's not a healthy relationship, but he is honest about it at the end. I mean, he does tell him everything when he says, what does he say? Like, you're not a killer, that's why you're good at it. And you want a puzzle you can never solve. He tells him about the 12 pages, and you killed him. I was the cop. So it's just interesting. He knows that Leonard is a maniac. He's playing a very dangerous game of Russian roulette here, though. I mean, so when he gets shot, no one ever has it coming, but he was playing with fire with the guy 100%. He knew who was making up these rules. Also, this is the first time I thought about the Matrix reunion. Jeez Louise.
Yeah, well, so Carrie-Anne Moss apparently recommended Joey Pants be cast in this role.
Oh.
And the cast, so she was the one that suggested him, having worked with him on the Matrix, and I guess initially there was some skepticism because they thought that, like, similar to what we were just saying, that like it would be too obvious that he was untrustworthy, like he was almost too sketchy. But I guess he came in and read and did a good job, and they liked him, and so they cast him.
Yeah, I mean that's the last thing you want in this movie is have someone be too sketchy.
Yeah, you've got to be, again, if the goal is for us to be sort of experiencing Leonard's world, we have to always be questioning who we can trust. And again, he's got that blind spot of, it turns out that he can't even trust himself. But there always has to be an element of, you're trying to figure out if people are telling you the truth. You're trying to read people. That's what he says at a certain point, that he's I'm good at reading people because that's what I did for a living. And so for us to experience Leonard's world, the characters have to have some believability.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And man, if someone was too shifty in this movie, because me starting this film, I never once thought that Guy Pearce was going to have that turn. Did you? Not turn.
No, I didn't see. I mean, for sure, the first time I was completely blindsided by the twists and turns of this film, for sure.
Oh, it's so good. So I have a question. Like, what are your favorite moments in this movie? So there's a couple that I love. Just to kind of touch on things we haven't touched on. Yeah. I like that he's getting charged for 2 rooms, and Bert says, "Always get receipts." Like, I love that line because they're just taking advantage of him, but he's so honest about it. I like the scene where Natalie pushes Leonard to hit her, and then later on he's feeling his fist. Like, why does my fist hurt? Like, that's a really interesting moment. It's like, it's maybe it's surprising he didn't put that, those together. But yeah, a couple, like the spit and beer moment, that's just so gross. And I also like the scene about like bluffing to seem like less of a freak. So that's why you have that understanding. So in your eyes, you're like, I don't know where I am, but I'm going to look at you like I know you. There's just some very little touches. And also, I think my favorite line, am I chasing him or is he chasing me? Like,
the best, yeah. I love that. I don't feel drunk as well, right before the naked fight. Those are great. Because there are some really good, like the renting the 2 rooms thing is awesome too. There are some little moments of humor throughout that sort of just break the tension for a minute. One of my favorite is when he kicks in the wrong motel door when he's going to go and get the jump on. And when he's going to go get the jump on Dodd. And he's like, "Oh, sorry," knocks the guy down on the other side of the door. That is amazing.
Why does he burn his wife's stuff?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Sorry to interrupt the flow.
No,
there,
that's okay.
Because he hires the woman to come in, and he's like, "Don't comb your hair with this. Don't put that on. Just lay him out, and then come get me." Which is kind of what's kind of crazy though? He goes into the bathroom, which is where he found her laying there. So what is he trying to get from that?
Yeah, I'm not sure. It's interesting too because I read about that scene, and I guess there was a lot of debate about whether that scene should even be kept or not. Like, there was a bit of, I think, confusion even amongst the cast and the crew around, like, what are we doing here? Like, what exactly how is this contributing to the story? I mean, he says at one point, like, "Oh, I've probably burned truckloads of your stuff." Maybe he's trying to move on from her. I'm not too sure, because at the same time he's tattooing, he's tattooing himself to remember what happened to her. I'm not too sure. I don't know. I'd have to think about that more.
Yeah, because I watched that, and I guess that makes sense that the crew would have issues with that, because the only reason why he would want to go back in the bathroom is to re-feel that, to keep the hate flowing, maybe.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, that's a good theory for sure.
But I mean, who knows? It's an odd point. It's an odd moment. But yeah, that's my one question. But yeah, what else? What other scenes are there that we love?
So some of the things that I love, again, just as a huge Nolan fan, I love some of the shots that we see him use that become sort of like not callbacks necessarily, but like they're kind of become Nolan staples in other films. So like, the scene when he wakes up in Natalie's bedroom, the first thing you see are the birds flying around in the cage, which you then see in The Prestige, right? Like, it's almost the exact same shot. The way he shoots memories as sort of these, like, just these snapshot moments. And so Leonard is having these memories of these different moments with his wife, and they're shot almost exactly the same way that Leonardo DiCaprio is remembering Marion Cotillard in Inception. Like, very similar style. And so I just love that there's like that he sort of carried some of those signature shots into the future. The last one I'll mention, I love, this was just a cool piece of trivia. The fact that Teddy's phone number that Lenny writes down on the Polaroid, it's the same phone number as Marla Singer's phone number from Fight Club.
Oh my gosh. Oh, I
So
love
just like
that.
the little cool Easter eggs that are in there, it's so cool.
And, the cinematography by Wally Feister. I mean, this is a guy who, he shot Moneyball. He shot Dark Knight Rises, Inception, Dark Knight Prestige, Batman Begins, Italian Job, Insomnia, Memento. I mean, this guy, also shot A Kid in Aladdin's Palace. Really good movie. No, I'm joking. But
Okay.
yeah, I mean, but then he moved on to be a director, and I feel kind of bad because he had such a, as a camera operator, he worked on like Slumber Party Massacre, the second one. He worked on While You Were Sleeping. It just is like a camera operator. But then he started directing. He did Transcendence. Then he did some of Flaked, and then he did The Tick. And now lately he did a Hyundai commercial in 2019, and then a Taco Bell commercial in 2018. So I feel bad that this really excellent cinematographer tried to make the step to directing, and then it just didn't take. It's kind of a bummer.
It is a bit of a bummer, and it's interesting. Like, I guess so. I had written it down. He did all the way up to, was Inception the last film that he did then with Nolan?
Dark Knight Rises.
Oh, Dark Knight Rises. Okay. So I mean, so Nolan had Interstellar after that, which I absolutely love.
That was Hoyt van Hoytema.
Okay.
Interstellar.
I just wonder if the reunion of the partnership would maybe revive for both of them. Not that Nolan he's not doing Taco Bell commercials, but I just feel like some of the magic, like that run of Memento, Insomnia. I maybe should rewatch that. I don't remember loving it very much. I feel like I own it on DVD as well, but Memento, Insomnia, Batman Begins, The Prestige, The Dark Knight, Inception. I'll throw The Dark Knight Rises in there, even though it's not great. And Interstellar, like that run to me is just like, those are some of my favorite films of all time, all just from Nolan. And since then he's maybe lost a little bit of the magic. And so I wonder if a reunion with Wally would maybe help with that. I don't know.
Man, Interstellar is the 27th highest rated film on IMDb.
Should be higher. I love that movie so much.
That McConaughey scene and just all the Kip Thorne science, the crying scene, and just, jeez.
And this is a note, but the score, the Hans Zimmer score is easily my favorite score of all time.
Oh wow.
Oh yeah, it's so good. It's so good. It plays such a role. That scene where they're spinning, trying to reconnect the two ships, the score on that is just unbelievable. People like it's not even a particularly emotional scene. It's just a
repair and
two ships reconnecting. But I read somewhere that many people in the audiences like reported like crying during that scene. And it's the score that really evokes that emotion from that. So yeah, I love Interstellar.
Oh man. All right, so we'll talk about that one day. I know you have a list, and we have a movie already planned for next, don't we?
I feel like we do. I don't remember.
We'll look at your list. You sent me just a banger list.
Giant list.
Hey, yeah. So how about this? Let's celebrate Guy Pearce by doing a quick Guy Pearce draft. So it's each pick 5 movies. I'll let you go first since you, I probably know more of his films, but I'll let you go first.
Okay, so I'm definitely, because again I raved about it. I'm definitely taking The Count of Monte Cristo with my first pick.
All right. So you got The Count of Monte Cristo. Oh man, I have no idea what I'm gonna pick. This is gonna hurt. All right. So I'm gonna take. People are going to think I've lost my mind. I'm going to take Lockout because I don't care. I love his character in that. And I'm insane, but it's action hero Guy Pearce, and it's beautiful. So I'm taking Lockout.
Amazing. I will take The Hurt Locker with my second pick. Again, just phenomenal film. He's not in it for very long, but if we're doing it based on the strength of the film as well, he's good in it for the short time that he's in it. But just, again, just an incredible movie. So I'll take that one, The Hurt Locker.
All right, to keep up with you, I'll take LA Confidential because he's just so good in that movie. Oh my gosh.
All right. For my third, then I will take. Oh, I'll take Lawless. I like that as well. I don't remember him in it too much, but again, Tom Hardy. Yeah, I'll take Lawless. Really good movie.
I'm gonna do Animal Kingdom because Ben Mendelsohn, Joel Edgerton, Sullivan Stapleton. It's a movie more. Jackie Weaver, she was nominated for an Oscar. It's a movie more people need to watch. I was an extra on The Odd Life of Timothy Green. Joel Edgerton was on it, and he was standing next to me after Jackie Weaver lost that weekend, and I almost looked over at him and was like, "Hey, man, she was robbed." Like I almost said it, but I kept my mouth shut.
And also Warrior. What was that like? Talk to me about that.
Bro, he's like, "Man, I'm acting right now. Leave me alone." All right, who you gonna take fourth?
I will take fourth. I'll take The King's Speech. I'm a fan of that movie.
All right, I'm gonna take Ravenous because I adore that film.
Nice. I will then, for my last one, I will take. Ooh. He was in Rules of Engagement with Samuel L. Jackson and Tommy Lee Jones. I can remember really liking that movie, so I'll take that.
All right, The Rules of Engagement, and you've left me with a ton of good ones. Like Bloodshot, he's not too great in that. I'm gonna take. This is evil. You left me with too many good ones here. He's Let me look at the Proposition. Let me look at the Proposition. He is so slimy in this movie. You know what? I'm going to do it. I'm going to take The Proposition. I'm doing The Proposition. Because he is such a scuzz bucket in it. So I'm taking that. The Proposition.
I'm gonna write that down and check The Proposition out.
And Ravenous too. The score, if you are in the scores in movies,
yeah.
Ravenous has one of the craziest scores you'll ever hear. It's beautiful. No, I feel
definitely
good.
check that out.
Oh crap, 85. Yeah, Proposition. So this is good. So Phil picked The Count of Monte Cristo, The Hurt Locker, Lawless, The King's Speech, and The Rules of Engagement. I picked Lockout, LA Confidential, Animal Kingdom, Ravenous, and Proposition. The Proposition. So when this episode drops, head over to Movie Stones and Flicks Facebook, and you can vote on it. It doesn't matter who wins because Guy Pearce does. So it's totally fine, whoever you vote for. I have lost so many of these things, Phil. I lose most of my polls.
It happens, man. I picked the hits. Okay, hey, before we get out of here, I've got one question that I got to ask you.
Yeah.
If we're doing a pod on Memento, I think this is probably the most important question to ask. So hopefully people have made it all the way to the end. You're the tattoo artist. You head into work. It's Wednesday morning. You know, you've had a busy week. Someone walks into your shop and they say, "Mark, this is what I want. I want you to tattoo John G. raped and murdered my wife backwards across my chest." Your response is?
I mean, you'd probably learn immediately. Like, once you're talking it through, his memory would completely flip. So then he would probably say, "Hey, I got these files." He would probably come in and bring you files. And then show you all these cases. Like, I need to find it, but my memory's terrible. And then I would just go, okay, why not?
Oh, so you're aiding, like okay, so he's going to convince you. You're asking for a little bit more context. You're like, "Hey, like, tell me a little bit more about what's going on here." And so he opens the bag and he's showing you the documents, and you feel like if you're aiding him in his quest that you're cool to do it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a reason. It's not just a weirdo. Like, he's just some punk rocker who wants it on his thing, or he's mad at his brother-in-law. Like, or you know what I mean? Like, this seems okay. So you really like this. You have these files. You show me that you don't have this. You're presumably well dressed. Why not? Let's do it. But I would be like, you're not going to lose your mind on me when I'm doing this, will you?
Yeah.
Because that takes longer than his memory lasts.
Yeah, and I guess as long as as long as the tattoo he's asking for isn't Mark H, then you're good. You're good to go.
Yeah. Mark H. Wait, not me. What?
Part of me wonders, like, I would imagine no one's writing those exact words, but I wonder if, like, reverse tattoos that I can look at in the mirror, like, there's got to be somebody out there that's like, yeah, I want one of those.
Oh, somebody out there has a Memento tattoo. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it's like they've written something across their chest in reverse so that when they look in the mirror, they can read it. They're like, yeah, this looks awesome.
You are the best.
Yeah.
Believe in yourself.
We could go believe, achieve, to succeed.
Live, laugh, love.
Yeah.
You know, like, and you just look at it. You know what? I think I will. I think I will. Thank you.
I think I will. Thank
Maybe
you.
people need that. I mean, listen, I have a tattoo on my bicep that says "a day late, a buck short." So motivational quotes probably are better.
But how? So when you look at the tattoo, like, do you just turn and look at your arm and you're able to read it, or do you need to look at it in the mirror?
Two mirrors.
Two mirrors. You got to set up a whole mirror system.
You will never believe how I got this thing tattooed. It was crazy. Kip Thorne planned it. Nolan planned it out. So it takes me like, if I was in Enter the Dragon, you could see it in that mirror maze. Like, that's the only way.
It's a tattoo within a tattoo within a tattoo.
Oh, it's Polaroids.
Yeah.
Deep. And then you need two mirrors.
Yeah. Polaroids and two mirrors.
Every time that you read it, you lose at least, so every second that you spend reading it is the equivalent of 2 months of your life.
Right.
And Matt Damon's behind you waiting to just rip you up.
Yeah, exactly. That's the Nolan themed tattoo. That's as Nolan as a tattoo could be.
It's just, yeah, and then there's a clock next to it for some reason. I don't know why he told me to do that.
Always a clock. Always a clock.
Hey, but this was a joy, man. And also, if you enjoyed this episode with Phil, go listen to Never Back Down, listen to Limitless, listen to Fight Club. We did another
Prestige
one. The
as well.
Prestige.
If you're liking the Nolan, because I definitely love the Nolan, the Prestige as well, for sure.
And Walking Tall.
Yeah, man. If you really, if you want us and Adam Walking Tall, and the first time 12 rounds as well.
12 rounds. Yeah, 12 rounds. So I dragged you in for a lot of wrestler conversations here, but this series has been a blast, and I've really enjoyed revisiting these movies, so I appreciate it. I look forward to finding our list. I might just email it to you, because the more we chat, the further it gets pushed back. So I might just email it so I can pull it up.
The more we react to MMA fights over the weekend, the more the list disappears.
Oh, I got a really nice message from someone in the UK who said that they love MFF. They listen to every single episode, and they love that we talk about MMA. So that's pretty cool. Yeah, they love our
shout
MMA.
out to that guy.
Exactly.
As long as I'm on here, I will try and work as much MMA content into every single podcast that we do. So shout out to you, whoever said that. Thanks for passing that along.
Who wins? Well, before we get out there, Leonard or Dominic Cruz in a bathroom fight?
So bathroom fight is so the thing that immediately comes to mind. Dominic Cruz, big on movement. Needs lots of space, works well in the big cage. I think Leonard grabs a hold of him in the small confines of the bathroom and just smothers him.
Yeah, because, Lyoto Machida worked better in a big cage. Remember when he fought Yoel Romero in the tiny cage? And I just went, this is death.
Yeah.
This is... And also when Luke Rockhold hit Lyoto Machida that one time, I still feel that punch.
Oh.
But yeah. So yeah, I think... And also with the toilet, the sink, the slippery floor, and Dominic Cruz's knee injuries, with the slippery floor, movement in a bathroom on linoleum, he's rupturing something.
Yeah, 100%. That's a good shout too, for sure. It's if we're fighting in the bathroom, I'll favor Lenny in that one, and especially if he's naked. I mean, that's just awkward having to fight someone who's naked. So if you're naked, you automatically have an advantage if you're going into a fight.
Tiny area, slippery floor, naked villain. And also, Dominic is so used to using angles against people. Leonard doesn't know what an angle is. So Dominic Cruz's angles are going to be based on it being a real fighter.
Mm-hmm.
So Leonard won't play like that, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. And if Leonard's got the bottle of whiskey in his hand or whatever he had, then yeah, forget about it.
Oh gosh, this is awesome. Oh wait, well, none of us picked Memento. Do you want Memento?
Yeah, I'll take Memento. I'll kick the King's Speech off of my list, and I'll take Memento.
Cool, because if we put this list out there without Memento on it.
Well, yeah. Memento should be at the top of the list for both, right?
Yeah. All right, I'm gonna put it at number 1, just so, because somebody will be like, "Where's Memento, bro?"
Hey, and just to give it teaser for next time.
Hey, we forgot.
I scrolled through and I found our list. I think next time we're looking at doing Collateral, which I'm a big Tom Cruise guy as well. So
yes.
let's get after it.
And Jamie Foxx. Oh man, they're so good together.
And Michael Mann and the sound effects and oh my gosh, the Michael Mann Hazy City, the shots of the Hazy City. Like yeah, that movie's so good.
Mark Ruffalo looking tough.
Yep.
Oh, dude, this is good. Hey, well, Phil, thank you so much for joining. Phil B, thank you so much for joining me.
Man, it is a pleasure every time. Thanks so much for having me on.
All right, so for me, Mark Hoffmeyer, for Phil B, this is Movies on the Flicks. We'll see you next week.